Today's guest is Andrew Wiscombe, a singer-songwriter out of Utah. Andrew's honest and heartfelt music has been helping him be known across his scene. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah, of course. Hey, let's start back at the beginning. Where were you born and raised, and how did music first come into your life?
Yeah, I was born on an Air Force base in Montana. My dad was Air Force, and then he left the Air Force and came back to Utah, where my family's all from, and that's where I was raised. And he was in the army. He joined the army in Utah, National Guard Special Forces guy. And then so I grew up in South Utah County, kind of Provo, Utah area. And music has always kind of been a part of my life. My dad, take us around. He would guide hunts and things. And so we'd listen to a lot of the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors, and a lot of old country too. And my mom's side of the family is really musical. Her grandma, my great grandma, played piano in the silent theaters, but she couldn't read music. So she'd just make it up as she watched the movie.
Oh, wow.
So, and I also don't read music and play by ear. So we have a lot of musical people on that side of the family. So it's always kind of been a part of my family. And then from like 15 till 18, I was in like punk rock bands and stuff playing around. So.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah. So your parents didn't play any instruments then?
My dad played guitar a little bit. My mom sings at church, basically.
Yeah.
No, they didn't really. I think my mom played piano a little bit, but they didn't really get into it. I was kind of the kid that took off with that. Now I have other siblings that play too, but that was kind of my thing.
Awesome. When did you pick up an instrument for the first time, like guitar, I'm assuming?
I was probably 15 is when I picked up guitar. Pianos around growing up in my family and in Mormon culture, everybody has a piano. They want all the kids to learn how to play. I never did, but I would always tinker around a little bit too. And just now that I think about it, growing up, I would drive around with my parents and they'd be listening to music and I would harmonize with vocals, but I didn't know that's what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
So I would, sing these harmonies. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, so I guess I would do that when I was younger too, sing along.
That's awesome.
Attempt to.
Yeah. So you said when you're 15, you're playing punk rock songs. How did it kind of go from punk rock to your sound now? Like, how did that evolve?
Yeah, I think, probably if I would have been honest with myself at 15, I would have played the songs I do now, like I do, because it's kind of authentic to me and how I was raised. And it's a lot in my environment is the very singer-songwriter country type, Americana type music was always probably a part of me. So if I were honest, I would have played that, but I did love playing punk rock. But eventually after I got out of the army, I was really struggling and I hadn't really played guitar a whole lot in years. And I just took to the songwriting as a way to kind of deal with some of the demons and things that I was facing in my life, still do, it's a way for me to kind of like a teapot valve. It needs that steam, that little release, the pressure valve for it to not blow up. And I think that's kind of what songwriting has been for me, and fortunately a career now too, but it's been very good for me to release that crap that we all have, clean house, I guess.
Yeah. So were you as involved with songwriting and playing music before the army as you are now, or since then?
When I was 18, I thought I wanted to be a punk rocker. Like I was like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tour. And we had toured some and, and it's like, this is what I'm going to do. But I ended up going on a Mormon mission and not doing that, which was totally out of left field for me because nobody thought I would go. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I don't look the part now because I'm no longer LDS, but it was a great experience. Went to Brazil and then, so I wasn't as serious a songwriter. It was more about the punk rock, the feeling of the music than it was, lyrically for me. Now I tend to really focus on things lyrically for me is really important. Usually all my songs come lyrically first and then musically second. But
Interesting.
so I would say it's really been more serious the past, you know, I don't know, 8 years, something like that, 5 years. It's been really a major part of my life now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did music play into your experience in the Army? Were you able to listen to music out there, or kind of talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So I did have like those Martin backpacker guitars. They're really small, you know,
Yeah.
and I shoved one into a duffel bag. And so I would take it overseas and stuff. And I play a little bit, but not much, just kind of tinker. And I definitely wouldn't really sing with it or write. It was just playing, you know, but it was really helpful music in terms of like, you know, you come back and if you've had a really bad day and, you know, bad things have happened or a mission didn't go the way you wanted it to, or, things happen in combat. And so we would come back and we lived in tents, these foam tents. And like, sometimes we just blast Pearl Jam as loud as we could, you know, and just start kicking holes in the wall, like just getting that frustration out as a way somewhere for it to go, because there was so much pent up anger and sadness and frustration. That's, all these men are like, what do we do with this? So me and a few other guys, we'd listen to Pearl Jam and Nirvana or whatever else, and we'd kick holes in the wall. And that was a way for us to really vent some of those things. But even I think on some missions, I would take like an iPod with me that had songs on it, and I'd listen to it. Would be a very varied playlist. I would hear Iron Maiden, and then right after it would be like Merle Haggard, so it was very all kind of all over the place, but it was I think a good way for me to kind of zone out a little bit too, which is, you don't always want to zone out in combat. Obviously you want to be present, but but sometimes you had to, and it was a good thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then when you came back, you started getting into writing again.
Yeah.
Were you writing, was that the first time you'd written songs different than punk rock, really? Or how was that?
Yeah, I think so. It was so funny because when I started playing some of these songs, my ex-wife my wife at the time, my ex-wife, and some of my family would be like, I didn't know you were so country. It would come out totally kind of this folk country type thing. And I was like, I didn't know either, honestly.
Yeah.
It just kind of was what came out natural and what worked, what flowed best. And after I stopped trying to, my vocals, my wife is a vocalist, Michelle. If you know Michelle Moonshine, she sings beautifully like an angel. It's unbelievable. I don't consider myself a great singer. My voice is fine and it works with my music. But when I finally realized, okay, stop trying to sound like someone else, just sing like you would sing.
Yeah.
I think that's when it fell into place for me. It was like, this is what it is. Take it or leave it. I'm comfortable here, and it's worked a lot better for me.
Yeah, it's interesting how that happens sometimes. I mean, think of, you mentioned like punk rock, like Smashing Pumpkins, like Billy Corgan. He really wouldn't fit as like a great singer, but it works so well for what he is. And of course, now he's huge because of it.
Yeah, you'd never see him on a TV show for singing or anything, but great songwriter and great for what he does. I kind of feel, it's like some of my idols, John Prine is like one of my best idols, and Bob Dylan. They're not the best singers, but it really works well for their music and what they do. And I actually really love their voices. But
yeah, and it's so impactful. I mean, what they can do with their voice and what their voice is meant to do. There's a reason for it. It's amazing.
Yeah. When you're authentic, I think that comes through. So if you're trying to be something you're not, it won't hit. It just won't. And maybe some people will like the frills of that, but for me, authenticity is everything. And so when you can be honest with your words, with your style of playing, with your voice, when all of that is authentic and honest, it definitely, I think that's what makes the writing, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So what was your first song you wrote after the Army in that period? What was that like compared to the songs you write now?
First song. I think it was called Prairie Fire, and it's a really terrible song. But it felt good to do it, and it, you know, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't the best, but it felt really good to get it out and some of these feelings that I was having. And because I was still, I was very religious at the time too, but the religion wasn't authentic to how I was really feeling. I still wasn't fully authentic with myself, with the words, I think. Like they were great words, but I wasn't fully there yet. And when I allowed myself to just be completely honest with who I am in my life and where I'm at, I think that's when my writing started to really improve. And you learn craft over the time. You learn things that, okay, you're jamming in too many words, or you are really trying too much to tell people how to feel here. You need to show them, you know, you need to paint a picture and let them feel what they want to feel. And I think you learn with time some of the tools of the craft, but I think it was when I really allowed myself to be authentic to who I was and what I was feeling and the words I wanted to use, even if it was a word that wasn't appropriate in my life or whatever, but it's like, you know what, it fits here and it totally paints the picture. That's when things changed, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So walk us through what happened. So you started writing songs again, and then how'd you get from then to now? Like kind of fill in the blanks for us of what your music experience brought you through.
So I was just kind of writing, and I was really struggling with post-traumatic stress, and I had worked for Union Pacific Railroad as a manager. So, you know, I finished my degree and I was doing this job that was a very demanding job, and like 100 to 120 hours every week. That was normal. And I finally couldn't take it anymore. Like I was so worn down. The PTSD was awful. Just everything it was really hard. So I kind of had a mental breakdown. When I did that, I kind of had a few jobs in between here and there. I was even a financial advisor for Edward Jones. Like I was trying to find what I could do. And my ex-wife at the time just said, why don't you just do music? Just relax. Let's take a breather, do what you really love, just play music. And so much to her credit, you know, from there, I that's what I did. Just started playing music and started playing little coffee shops and sandwich shops and things like that. And writing in the meantime. And the writing kept getting better. When you play those places where people don't pay attention, you start to learn things. You kind of challenge yourself a little bit of how can I, you know, and so you do it enough that you get a little better and you learn some of the things about playing live. And so that was really good for me. And then eventually some big things in my life left where I got a divorce and change of faith and things, and still playing places. But then I met my wife now and we eventually married. And she introduced me to a lot of people around Salt Lake because she's kind of a Salt Lake gem here, a favorite in the area. So getting plugged into that and kind of playing some more places. So when people heard me, they go, oh, you know, I like this guy and I like his music. And I'll probably forever be known as Michelle Moonshine's husband, which is, I'm cool with that. It's no biggie because she's amazing. But, you know, it's kind of been good to get tapped into everything and playing around. Yeah. So I think it just kind of blew up more and more, kind of snowballed more. And I've always I'm part of a organization called Operation Encore.
Mm-hmm.
And they take singer-songwriters who happen to be military veterans or their spouses. And they help us record music. So my last record was a very expensive record, but they had the funding to help with it. Amazing. And they've flown me different places in the world and the United States to play. So courtesy of them, I've toured and had some other things and kind of got a following outside of Utah as well. That's been nice to have all these people help me along the way. So,
yeah. So let's talk about that record. It's called Strangest Congregations, right?
Yep.
And it recently passed, or relatively recently passed, 100,000 streams.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. What has the album done for you? Like, has it opened any doors for you? And what does the album mean to you? Like, especially now looking back, like, what does it mean to you what it did for you?
It's, you know, I've had other records. that just I was just getting out there, kind of like you're just writing real fast, right? This one, a lot more thought and preparation and editing went into the writing, and also um, the recording. I flew out to San Francisco and recorded with Adam Rossi, who's a big Bay Area guy, and Chuck Prophet, who's a great singer-songwriter that tours all over. His band backed me up on some of it, and it just felt right, and it felt like, okay, this is the caliber of music that I would like to write and produce and have out there. And we've had a lot of good feedback from it. There's people that don't even like my style of music have said some really good things about it. Had some really good write-ups in different magazines, and so it's been really good. I been hit up by some Netflix people about syncing and things, and so um, it's just kind of opened some doors. And when you have like any business, when you have a product that you like or that you think is good, it's easier for you to try to evangelize and go out and sell it, right?
Yeah.
So now that I have something in hand that I'm like, I'm actually proud of this and think it's great. It helps with that too, for marketing and for getting people to like your stuff. And Spotify, it was kind of weird. I got on some like Finnish or Swedish radio,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of that really was a big help. Kind of
Wow.
helped with those numbers, because man, I didn't expect anything more than a couple thousand, streams, and it just kind of, for me, for a little farm boy from Utah County, it blew up for me. So
Yeah, that's amazing. So
yeah.
what's your experience been with playing it? Do you play by yourself? Do you play solo, or do you have a band, or kind of what's that dynamic?
Yeah, so mainly solo. I do a duo with my wife, called Turtle Devon. We play around. That's a lot of fun. Um, but I just kind of made a cattle call for a band and had a really good turnout for people asking. So I'll probably start doing a band, not all the time, but some of the times. I think my songs stand on their own. So if I'm playing a listening room, it's very different. If I'm playing a bar, people want to hear what they know and they want to dance and they want music. So it makes sense to make it more lively there, which a lot of my songs are not so lively. They're more introspective thinking. So,
Yeah.
but if it's a listening room thing, they really do well. And I don't necessarily need a band during those scenarios. They stand on their own, I think. But I do want a band because I think to be able to be versatile and depending on the show to have that and to add it if I need it or not is really important. So working on that, actually jamming with a buddy tonight to see how that works out, and yeah, kind of building from there. So
That's awesome. So what are your thoughts on the, I guess, the Northern Utah music scene? What's it been like for you?
yeah, there is a heck of a lot of talent for this area. I mean, and I've lived in Tennessee, I've lived in Kansas, I've lived kind of all over, Texas for a bit, Georgia, um, and there are great musicians. But I really feel like we have a lot of talented people here, and it's the support that we get from people here is amazing too. During the pandemic has been crazy, especially when Michelle and I are both, kind of full-time singer-songwriters and musicians. But the people here have been so supportive and helped out in so many ways. So great crowds. There's some great venues too. The garage is always fun to play, and it's not the best listening room type experience, but it's super fun to sit there and have friends and people you don't know enjoying the tunes you're singing, and it's a great environment. So there's great venues and great talent, and I'm lucky to be a part of it. I feel like.
That's awesome. Yeah. What advice would you give to new musicians who are just getting started?
Nobody owes you anything until you write something that strikes home to them. Um, they don't owe you an ear, or they don't. I have a lot of friends that say, you go to play somewhere like a coffee shop or something, nobody was listening. Yeah, because they're in a coffee shop, they don't care. Like, your music is incidental, it is just background, and you have to realize the context of where you're playing. So don't beat yourself up too bad, and realize that context is everything. And you'll get to those places where if you can get over yourself a little bit and get past the ego and realize you're not the best, you're not the worst, you know, and you just keep working hard, you'll get better and better. And then you'll have those shows that'll hit and you'll go, okay, my music did connect tonight. Like it was made a difference in someone's life, or that was like, I felt the difference. You'll feel the difference. And when you do, that's everything. Hold on to those moments, because you're going to have a lot of crappy ones in between that, that just, you know, no one's listening or it's not hitting right. And that's completely normal. Like, but expect it and work hard, because like I said, nobody owes you anything, and it's, you work your butt off and eventually it can pay off, you know. And I feel like even with me, like nobody owes me anything. So I'm just kind of a middle road person. I'm not famous. I'm not a newbie. It's a blue collar job. I work my butt off and I love it. But it's up to me to go take it as far as I want to, or keep it where I want to keep it. No one's going to do that for me, and nobody owes me that. And so, work your butt off and have thick skin, and you'll eventually get to those places where something connects, and you'll see whether it's something you want to do. And some people want to be weekend warriors and just do have a day job and just kind of play music as they want. That's great. If you know that's what you want, absolutely no problem with that. I think that's cool. I know plenty of people that's the case. If you want to do a full-time thing of it, you know, it's hard.
Takes work.
It's a lot of work for sometimes what'll end up being a minimum wage job for you. You know what I mean? And then sometimes it pays off more. It just got to work hard and have thick skin.
Love that. Yeah. What are your short-term and long-term goals for music?
Short term, I just pretty much finished writing my next record.
Nice.
So I'll be hitting the studio for that with Dan from the Hollerin' Pines, Dan Young. He's a singer-songwriter as well. So Orchard Studios, I'll be recording with him. That'll take time for funding and everything, but it's pretty much written. So short term is to get that out. Long term, I would love to eventually see myself as like at Tops, a John Prine, where you're playing mid-sized venues across the United States and people are coming to hear your tunes. That's the most I would ever want. I wouldn't want like a stadium thing. I think I'm too big of a jerk, and I don't know that I like people enough for that. Like, I say I don't like people. I like people. Too much of people I'm an introvert, so I got to have my paparazzi in a stadium thing that would not be good for me. But I think, and that's good to paint exactly what you want. And I think mid-sized venues across the US for me, like a stateroom.
Yeah.
Across, in every major city in America, playing that and selling those out, that would be peak for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for your time today. I appreciate talking to you. I love hearing about your story and, how far you've come with your music and all that. It's really great to hear.